Okay, so here are the sonicated mass spec parts, and the goal is to reassemble them with these other parts that we didn't clean, but we want to keep all this alumina off of there, or the aluminum oxide. So we're going to remove all these bits. And then I'm just going to use a little bit of water to wipe that up. Okay, and then for reassembly, instead of wearing these sort of dirty gloves, I wear these clean gloves. And these ones we reserve just for reassembling the mass spectrometer. Okay, so what I do here, I guess, one second. So what I do here first is rinse off the parts with acetone to remove most of the water. So I've got this piece here. Okay, so that's a good start. We've got this piece here. Again, this is the focusing lens. Here, the entrance lens. Here, the repeller. And sometimes, depending how much time I have and what kind of shape the instrument is in, sometimes when I clean it, I just clean the repeller, because that seems to be the part that makes the biggest difference. Although I suppose one could argue that if you go to all the time to vent the thing and open it up, you may as well clean it all. I guess there's probably some truth to that too. Okay, so these pieces have got most of the water off them. So we're going to go ahead and reassemble them. Earlier I talked about inspecting these insulators here, the ones that go around the repeller, and I can't get them out and I don't want to break them, so I'm just going to inspect them, and they look okay. If they break, we have spare ones that we keep here in the drawer in a blue bag, and so these can be replaced. So here we've got the repeller. It goes in. Oh, okay, here come the little insulators now. So this insulator looks good. Maybe we can get this other one out as well. I'm sort of stuck. I'm just going to leave it. Okay. So there's that insulator. Next goes, whoops, there goes the washer. Oh, and of course I can't pick it up. Sorry, probably best not to touch it with your hands, actually. It's okay. Go for this. Oh. Boy, just doesn't want to go back together. Okay, so there's the washer. And then the nut just goes on like this. And then again, we're going to use this little hex tool to tighten it down. And you don't want to, you want it snug, but not over tight, so because the insulators expand when it heats up. So I put it on sort of snug like that, and then I give it just a little bit more. And then I call it good. Okay, these pieces now, the way this one works is you put in first this piece, then this spacer, then the ion lenses get assembled into their insulator. So here the ion focusing lens, and then the entrance lens. Their little antennae, which are the parts, which are the way by which they connect to the wires in there, point in the same direction. Then we put on the other half of the insulator. And this whole assembly goes into the housing here. And then we use this little screw to hold that all in place. Put that little screw in here. And tighten that just snug. We don't want to break the insulators. Okay, so now we've got this piece, and we've got this half. We put them back together, and they go, this is the orientation that they go in. And if you forget that, another way to figure it out is just to look at it and look at, you know, basically these holes here, 1, 2, 3, 4, are where the screws go, and they go into these holes here. And the only way that all those holes line up is when they're in this orientation. So if you are holding it this way or this way or this way, those holes won't line up. So when they all line up, then you know you've got the correct orientation. So again, we'll put these screws in. 2 of the screws just connect the 2 halves of the ionization source, and then we'll connect those first. So there's this screw here. And there's this one here. Oops. Okay, so I just put them in there very loosely for now. The other 2 screws hold on the filaments, and I didn't show this earlier, but the filaments I keep separated. Basically, I keep them in my head 1 and 2 and 1.
Hi, can I borrow this?
Yeah, go ahead. And 1 goes on the side, or I keep 1 on the side where the wires are, and keep number 2 on this other side. And that way, when you're running the instrument and you want to switch between them, you know which one you're switching between, and if one burns out, you know which one that is. So I use this screw here to connect the 1 filament. And I just again put it on there sort of loosely, and then here the other filament with this screw. Okay, so now these are connected, all 4 screws are in, so they can be tightened down a little bit. Just give them a snugging. Okay, so now those are snug. Now this whole piece is ready to go back inside. So we can open this up again. Again, this piece goes in like this so that these prongs will eventually connect to these wires will connect to this board, and these wires will connect onto the back of the source like this. So we slide this whole piece in. Then usually I connect the wires next. Oof. Okay, there the wires are connected. Now I do these ones. So the way you remember the connection for these is the one that goes on the left side of the board goes on the left side of the source, and the one on the right side, the right green one, is the right green one on the source here, and the same is true for the white. So the one that's on this left hand side here goes on the left hand prong, and the white wire that's coming out the right hand side goes on the right hand prong. Then these white wires are for filament 1, and basically the long one goes on this far connection, and the short wire goes on the close connection. The red wire is for the repeller, that goes right here. Then the black wires are for filament 2. The long one goes on this connection here, the far away one, and the short wire onto the short connection. So these are all connected now. Just double check them usually to make sure they're connected nicely. And the last two pieces that we have are these screws that hold the whole assembly in place. And it's important that the assembly, that the ionization source is seated nicely in its little place there. If it's hanging out a little bit like this, or if these screws aren't snug, it can wiggle around, and this then requires the instrument to be tuned way more frequently than it would otherwise need to be tuned, because it needs, it would have to be tuned every time that the source moves. So it's a little bit tricky to do with gloves on, but I put the one screw in, and then I put the other screw in down here. Okay. Then I get it seated nicely by sort of moving it about, and then I tighten down these screws. Okay, now it's all assembled. I check that nothing has fallen into the chamber here. There's some junk in there, I don't know what that is. Then I also check this seal that runs around the length of the chamber and make sure that it looks okay and isn't poking out or anything weird like that. If that all looks okay, then I close this up. Now, I push it closed, and what I'm going to do is turn on that roughing pump that's underneath the table, and then I'm going to, at the same time, be pushing on this silver piece gently in this way so that it's sealed shut. First, I close this vent valve. Then, while I'm pushing with this, I use my foot to turn on the pump. And once that's gone for a few seconds, the door is usually shut and being sucked shut by the pump, so we can reconnect these wires. There's the one, it goes all the way in, and these should close all the way like this. Sometimes it's tempting to not push it in all the way. These need to be closed all the way on top of it, all the way in, otherwise it won't work. This one goes here. And that's it. Then we can put the shroud back on.